Hey, what's up, Moto Buddies? Today we're going to show you how to do the damper replacement on a DDS spring clutch on a this bike happens to be a KTM 500. This is a center hub that's pulled out of the bike, the clutch basket hub. This is not the stock one. This is the upgraded one. This is a Rekluse unit, and so we're throwing a Rekluse auto clutch on this bike. And so here you have the stock center carrier. So the main thing we want to talk about is the difference between the Rekluse and the OEM bushings. So these are the DDS dampener bushings, and as you look at these, the one on the right here is the Rekluse, and you'll see how much stouter the side shoulders are than the stock one. The top link is stiffer and beefier. I mean, everything about this thing is better. The rubber material is better. The side shoulder here, this contact surface, you can see how much surface area there is versus the OEM one, the stock one. It's just like a little point versus a big flat shoulder area. So the Rekluse version of the DDS damper is so much better in every way, and so we've pretty much abandoned using these stock bushings. So these are the remaining ones that we have, and I'll use these probably on somebody who's got like a light use bike, general use trail bike. This guy happens to race his machine, and so we're 100% going to use these Rekluse. So this Rekluse kit, here's the part number here. We carry these. This is, I think this has the application for any DDS clutch all the way up to 2020s. And then you get 6 of these, and then you get a new lock washer here. The old ones are reusable, but you know, they give you a new one, so go ahead and use it. So the installation, this is pretty simple. You just drop these in with the link collar down. All of these go in just like this. And there's a big difference here between the OEMs. See how these pull in, and then the Rekluse ones, they maintain the gap. If you're doing, let me do this. If you have the stock ones, then here's what you're going to be up against, and there's kind of a little trick here to deal with that. You do the same thing. You drop these guys in there, and notice how they all sort of like retract into themselves. You stack these in, and these guys all live down in there. And the little thing that we do here, and you may want to do this first, is, and I forgot to do this, we'll spread these guys out. We'll just give these a bit of a tug to get the gap as good as possible. And once you do that to all these, then they will hold their shape for a little while as you open them up. When they've been sitting in the bag, or when you get them first from your supplier, they're going to retract. So you open these guys up. I like to give them a little spray with some jus here. WD-40 is fine. You're just trying to get these things a little bit greasy because you want this center to slide in like this. And then what I'll do is I'll take a flat screwdriver, and then I just kind of walk the gap on these. You see how this rubber has pulled itself in again, but if you take your screwdriver and you just walk that gap, then I felt it when the last one that was sort of binding released, and now they're all seated. And so now what you can do is you can just push this in, and when you get them right, you can push it in with your hands. It's no big deal. And if you can't get it all the way in there, and so you see how this shoulder here is up on the clutch hub here, to get that all the way down, I will take a big center socket, or just anything that sort of has a center surface like that, and then you just give it a push down. And so I've almost got it all the way in now, but you get the idea. You just take something, and even if you took a rubber mallet and just tap that down, you want this center area to be flush. These two pieces here should be flush with each other. I'm not going to continue to do that because I'm going to pull these back out so I can show you the same procedure with the Rekluse bushings. And so getting it out should be pretty easy. So we're going to get rid of the OEM ones. and separate out for the Rekluse. So the job is exactly the same with the Rekluse. These guys, notice now, they hold their shape just by default because they're just so much beefier and better. But the same operation, you throw these guys all in there, stack them in. Remember that the link bar goes down. That link is down. If you put it up, this would interfere. The splines of the center would interfere. So I like to give these a little shot of some juice. Doesn't matter what you use. You can use WD-40 like I have here or motor oil. Just something to aid the slide. And now these guys fit right in. So I don't need to spread these out. That just goes straight in. So I am going to center punch this one here and get it all the way seated. And so let me make one note here. These, because they're stronger and a little bit thicker, you'll have to push a little harder on that. And so this one will take a little more oomph. But you get the general idea. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to close that gap. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend putting it on the bike and then tightening the nut to close the gap. I like to do it on the bench. I like to see what I'm doing. And so let me grab a mallet. So here, we're not going to use this. Oh, by the way, this is a pretty slick product. This is a Dirt Trick Easy Funnel for doing oil changes on your bike. That threads right into the clutch cover. Okay, so when I'm going to drive this thing in here, I'll just put a big socket on there, give it a couple of taps, getting close, and I'll usually tap it kind of around. I don't tap right in the center, kind of walk it around, and there it is. It's all the way down. So that's super flush. Give it just one or two more quick taps. And you can also, I mean, if you wanted to, you could drop this kind of over the edges. Do something like that. And it's completely seated and ready to go. But the idea is you just want to get this thing tapped down in there. So I should have showed you this when we pulled this apart. But if I was to walk this like this, so if I trap the center and I move the sides, then you'll see a slop between the front and the back of this. And the way that they've ovaled this out is to catch, if you didn't have any bushings in here, then the center carrier would just rock in between the two ovals. And that would set the limit, the amount of travel there between these two pieces. And so basically what's happening is you're dampening, you're isolating the outer part, which is the transmission, away from the center part, which is the engine torque. And you just want to dampen those two against each other so there's no metal-to-metal contact. So if you didn't have the bushings, you would just rock that. And so when they're totally blown, sometimes these bushings will shred, they will just be destroyed, and they'll fall out. So you see there's holes in here, and the bushings sometimes will just fall out. They'll drop into the bottom of the motor, and then you'll hear sort of a clunk, clunk as you apply power and then decelerate as this thing is walking. So fresh bushings will prevent that. And if they haven't disintegrated, then you may not be getting the metal-to-metal contact, but you'll be getting a thunk that doesn't sound like metal, but it will still, sometimes you'll feel it and you'll hear it. And so I think the manual calls for these to be replaced at 40 hours. We're seeing them go from 40 to 80 to 100. And then I think these Rekluse, we've not run a full set to full term on the Rekluse ones, but I think they're recommending about twice. So maybe 160 hours. And I would believe that based on the material and how good they seem to be. So that's basically it. Super simple. You don't need any special tools. You don't need a press. There's nothing really magical about any of this. Again, you can get these center hub bushings, the DDS bushings, if you want, from us or from Rekluse or any of the other places you get your parts. Here we are back with the nut back on our center hub here. And I want to show you a little pro tip on seating the collars, the tabs on this lock nut. So when I put this on, remember seeing in the earlier in the video, these were flat. So this piece was flat. It had one edge of it that was angled, and that goes here. This is the keyway sort of that retains it here inside the hub. So this pre-bent piece, that fits down into this slot, but these two tabs over here, these are going to be flat. They're going to lay flat against the bottom plate of this center carrier. And so what I usually do here is I'll take a flat screwdriver and I'll I'll run the nut down just to capture it, and then I will take the screwdriver and then I'll kind of give it a little twist, or I'll tug it up here. But I want to get these tabs sort of already bent, maybe at a 20-degree angle. You're not going to be able to get them to this point, but just a little bit. And I'll do the same thing to the other one. You get the idea. Put the screwdriver down in here and then kind of pre-bend these. And once they're already angled up, you know, some guys will take a chisel or something and then they'll drive them in. There's a better way to do that, and that's to take like a big open set of channel locks like this, grab the nut, and then take this you know, the bottom edge here, and then you're just gonna hook it underneath the lip of that, come across the top here, and then just give that thing a big pinch. So when you pinch these in, you'll seat them really cleanly. And the main thing you're not gonna do is you're not gonna put a material fatigue down here on the edge of this, or creating little metal shavings that might niche off that, knock off that thing that'll dance around in there. So you're just gonna bend up both of these tabs and it'll look something like that. You'll have a really clean install. You've got your new center bushings in here, and so this Rekluse is ready to hit the trail. Pro tip, once you've got your DDS spring, so this is your clutch spring, you know, on some of the Asian bikes and motocross KTM bikes, they'll have springs here that act as the clutch, you know, the outer hub. They will act as the spring return on the clutch unit itself. But some of these bikes, especially the FE and EXC bikes, they use this big DDS washer. This is a spring. And so one of the key things that I think is important when you set up a Rekluse is that you want to eliminate, that's my dog hair right there, you want to eliminate any slippage as much as possible. And so if you see on here, there's 3 different sizes. You've got, see how they stack here? This one represents the tallest one, and on the face they're numbered 1, 2, 3. Let me find that for you. Yeah, there you go. So you've got these notches 1, 2, and 3, and I set this, all of my Rekluse clutches, I set it to number 1. That's the shortest deck. And so you can see that 1 is the shortest, 2 is the middle guy, and then 3 is the tallest. And so the taller the preload here, basically, the more likely you're going to have slippage. And I don't want any slippage on clutches. It'll burn out your plates, and you want to have it hook up as good as possible. And so I always set my Rekluses to the number 1. So the stock came out in the number 2 spot. I'm going to reset this one when I put my bolts back in. I'm going to put it in the number 1 spot. Get it? Go get it. All right, fellas. Go out there and get some adventure.